Hi everyone, welcome back. Long time no see again. Oh man, I took a little break again, but I am focused and you guys will be getting between 3 and 5 videos from me every week from now on going forward. That is my goal. So for today's video, we're going to be making this super cute little happy birthday card, and I love this. I am obsessed with everything hot air balloon. As you can see, I even have a hot air balloon tattoo. And I love this card. We're going to be doing some heat emboss resist on the background piece on our main piece of cardstock. We're going to be doing a little bit of embossing on the balloon, so it's just a really fun card to make. So I'm going to set that off to the side, and then we'll go through the things that we actually need for this card. So for ink today, we're going to be using Soft Sky. You could also use Pool Party. I feel like Pool Party might work a little bit better, but I'm going to continue to use Soft Sky since that's what I've already used. We're going to be using Melon Mambo, Basic Black, and Versamark. Then we're also going to be using one of these little craft sponges. You buy these in a pack of 3 bigger sponges, and then I think I cut them up into like 1/8 or 1/6 or something like that. So you can get quite a few out of one package, and they're not that expensive. And then we're going to be using 2 different embossing powders today. We're going to be using black embossing powder and clear embossing powder. If you didn't have black embossing powder, you could just use your basic black ink. And you know what, I think for this card I'm going to just do that. I'm not going to use the black embossing powder. I will say that it does get kind of messy with the clouds when we end up doing that part. So I'm not going to do that. If you wanted to, and I'll point it out when we get to that point in the video, if you wanted to, you could use the black embossing powder. But you will need clear embossing powder for this. Then for our stamp sets today, we're going to be using Celebrate Today and Balloon Celebration. The only stamp that we're using out of the Balloon Celebration is going to be this cloud stamp. I just really like the shape of the cloud and the look of that cloud in particular, so that's the one that we're going to be using. And then we're going to be using just a couple of the stamps out of the Celebrate Today, which I will show you guys. Set those off to the side. We're also going to be using the balloon framelits, which you can get as a bundle with the Celebrate Today stamp set since they correspond together. Coordinate, that's what I was looking for. And as far as our papers go, we're only going to be using 3 colors today, keeping it pretty simple. You are going to need a piece of Melon Mambo cut at 8.5 by 5.5 for our card base. We are going to need 2 pieces of Whisper White. One is going to be cut at 5.25 by 4 inches, and the other needs to be cut at 3.5 by 4 3/4. You'll also need a piece of Basic Black cut at 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and then just a scrap of Whisper White that's large enough to do our balloon stamp on it. So all of those dimensions will be in my coordinating blog post, which is always the first link down below. So I will go ahead and leave all that information there, and let's jump in and get started. Okay, so first thing that I want to do is go ahead and do our little balloon. So for this is where I said you could use the black embossing powder instead of the basic black ink. I did find that the black embossing powder made it a little difficult. It was just a little messy for me for this particular technique. So I would recommend go ahead and use the basic black ink. You don't have that little bit of embossing, but there is a lot of other embossing on the card, so I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. And we're also using our Melon Mambo. We are going to stamp this, and what I'm actually going to do is I have a little mouse pad here. If you had I can't even remember what it is. I'll put what I'm trying to think of, the Pierce mat. That's what I'm trying to think of. You could use that as well instead of a mouse pad. I just have a mouse pad handy all the time, so it's easy for me to use. But you could obviously use whatever you wish. And we're just going to ink up our balloon stamp. Now I will say this stamp is a little difficult to work with just because it is such a large image, but having the mouse pad or that Pierce mat does help. And I think if you just go into it knowing that it's not going to be 100% perfect, that really does help. There you go. See, and it's not that bad. I'm going to go ahead and clean my stamp off to the side, just so you guys know I love cleaning my stamps as I go. Okay, so we're done with Melon Mambo. Don't even need this for anything else for the rest of the card. Set that off to the side. Next, we're going to go in with our basic black and our birthday stamp. And just get this nice and inked up. And like I said, this is where on my sample card I used black embossing powder and Versamark ink. But I feel like you get the same look whether you use the embossing powder or just a regular black ink. It's not a huge, it doesn't have a bunch of technique for it, so I think that looks just as well as, just as good as the other one does. So that's that. I'm going to set this off to the side to dry a little bit, move my mouse pad out of the way, and while we still have our basic black ink, let's go ahead and start working on the background piece where our clouds are going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my smaller piece of Whisper White that we have cut. Again, this is cut at 3.5 by 4 3/4. And what we're going to do is take this little, oh, and I forgot to say that birthday, the word birthday that we just used was also from the Celebrate Today stamp set. And so is this little, oh, I don't even know what you want to call it, the basket for the hot air balloon. And I'm just going to ink this up in basic black, and I'm going to stamp it in the middle, left and right, and then slightly lower down on the bottom because we have to do our balloon as well. And it's actually bigger than you think it's going to be, so I would say if you go lower than you think you need to go is essentially what you need to do with that one. Wash that off. Okay, so the reason that we have to do that first is because we're going to be doing our emboss resist technique on top of it, and if we were to wait to stamp this later, you wouldn't actually be able to stamp it because we're going to do some clouds over it and that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into our embossing here in a second. So I want to go ahead and heat set this just so that none of the clear embossing powder sticks to it. If it does, it's not the end of the world, but I would just prefer the embossing powder to not stick to it. So I'm just going to take my heat tool, heat it up on my hand, and just dry this ink a little bit. The basic black ink does dry fairly quickly on its own, but I like to give it just a little bit of help along the way. Perfect. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of scratch paper I have off to the side. And there's some embossing powder stuck on here, so I want to get all of that off. Perfect. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take my piece of scratch paper, put it underneath. We're going to now use our cloud stamp. And again, this is the only stamp that is coming from the Balloon Celebration set. So if you have another cloud stamp that you really, really like, feel free to go ahead and use it if you don't have this particular stamp set, but you have the, oh gosh, why can't I remember the name of this one? The Celebrate Today. So if you have the one with the hot air balloon, but you don't have a cloud stamp, or you don't have this particular set, use whatever cloud stamp works best for you or whatever you have. If you have a Versamark marker, you could even draw some clouds on here and do it that way. I think that would be pretty cool. So I'm just going to take my little cloud and I'm just going to start stamping it all over our piece. And just randomly, no rhyme or reason to this really, just all over. Some of them can be crooked, they can all go the same way. Whatever you feel is right. Oops. Have a big cloud right over our little basket. Sorry, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. There was a dog outside our apartment that was going crazy, and so my dogs thought that they needed to attack it. Anyways, I'm just going to continue stamping. Oh, the joys of living in an apartment, I tell ya. Okay, so I have all of my little clouds. I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to move that off to the side. And now I'm actually going to take my piece of scratch paper. And because I stamped off on it, I'm going to just turn it over because I don't want any of the embossing powder sticking to my scratch piece of paper. It's just unnecessary. So flip it over, creased it in the middle, and now we're going to take our clear embossing powder and just go over all of the clouds, just like this. And if you see I ran out of embossing powder, I'm just going to pick up my piece, and then this down here is what needs embossing powder, so I'm going to tilt it that way. There, I think we're good. The hardest part with this is finding a place that you can hold on to and not mess up the embossing powder. So I just gave it a quick one-over look to make sure that there's no stray embossing powder anywhere. That is going to be pretty important, because wherever there's embossing powder, when we go to do our little inking technique, the ink is not going to stick wherever our embossing powder is. So if you have a place where you actually want the embossing, or where you want the ink to go, you want to make sure that you clean off an area that has embossing powder, if that makes sense. I don't know if what I just said really made any actual sense, but I know what I'm talking about. Basically, wherever you have embossing powder, ink is not going to stick there. So if you have some stuff that's stray, you want to make sure you remove it, because you're going to get little speckles if you don't. Unless you want that look, and that's the look that you're going for, then of course leave it. But for me, and this card, that's not the look that I really want. I want everything to be nice and crisp and clean. So now all I'm doing is just melting our clear embossing powder. One more, whoop. Perfect. So you'll see that I got a couple of little speckles of stray stuff in some of the clouds. I'm not overly concerned about that. In the end, it doesn't make a huge difference. You can't really tell. But if you're concerned, just try and get any little speckles or dust or lint that could be in the air. Just make sure you kind of sweep that away. So I'm going to set this off to the side. It's basically dry right away, but I just want to set it off to the side just to do its thing, and we're just going to take a second away from it. Right now what we're going to do, I'm trying to make some room so I can bring in my big shot. And I'm actually going to do it this way today, because maybe you guys will get a better view of what I'm actually doing. Actually, hang on, let me move this up for just a second. Let's get this guy ready. So we're going to be using the balloon framelits. Obviously, we're going to be using the balloon. There's only 4 framelits in this set, so there's that. I'm going to take just a piece of washi and put it on our little framelit here. Let me try and center this guy up as best I can, at least, and stick that down. Now I'll bring in my big shot, remove the plate, stick him right there in the middle, and go once, and then twice. And we should be good. I always just kind of check the back. Looks good to me. Move that guy off to the side. remove our scrap. Oh, and that actually cut right through the piece of washi. Huh, wouldn't you know? Just remove this as well. There is that. There's our little balloon guy. So he's going to go off to the side right now too. And we're going to bring back in our piece of scratch paper if I can find it. Here it is. And now we're going to do the fun embossing technique. So we are now going to bring in our soft sky. And again, like I was just saying, if you wanted to use Pool Party, I think Pool Party would work very nice as well. But I'm just going to use soft sky because it's what I had up on my desk. I'm going to take my little sponge, and all I'm going to do is just dab it in here and then do little circles all over the piece. And you can see wherever our clear embossing powder is not getting any ink. So the embossing powder resists the ink, and that's why it's a emboss resist technique. I like to do it in little circle motions just because we're trying to get it to look like the sky, so it's nice and wispy. But you can do it however you want. If it's easier for you to just go up and down, by all means do that. And I have a hair stuck to me. I just like the look of kind of the swirls. I think it gives it a nice little look to it. So just keep doing those little circles. And I think that's probably good for me. Let me just take a look at it. Yeah, I think that's enough color. If you want it to be darker, obviously continue. If you wanted to do, you could do like a sunset if you wanted to. So start with like some reds and oranges and yellows and mix them all together and just go up and down the piece. That would be beautiful as well and work just the same way. You just do a little bit more blending of the inks than just putting one solid color down. But you can see doing those little circles, it gives it some depth and dimension. So some areas are a little bit darker, some areas are a little lighter. That's why I really like doing that technique. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now we're just going to put everything together. Our card's almost done. So we're going to take our little piece here, and I'm just going to use regular old my Tombow permanent adhesive. We're going to stick this down on our piece of basic black, flip this over, put this down on our piece of Whisper White. On my sample card, I only did a layer of basic black, but this one I wanted to add just a little something more, so we're going to add a layer of Whisper White, just for fun. I think it'll give it a little bit of a different look, which is kind of what I wanted. That's crooked. So either I cut crooked or I stuck down crooked. And unfortunately, this is super strong adhesive, so I'm probably not going to get that up very well. Well, it's okay. It's handmade. It's made with love. So now what I'm going to do is take our piece of Melon Mambo, grab my bone folder or throw my bone folder, whatever you want to call it, and crease that. Do this. The only reason I'm doing it this way is because I've been talking about it in the past, a couple of my past videos. I really don't like sticking stuff down when it has dimensionals on it. If I'm doing like this piece, I'm sticking down with just regular adhesive. So it makes it a little difficult if I had something that's got dimensionals on it, and that's what we're going to use to attach this. It makes it difficult sometimes to put down the adhesive, so I just like to wait and do my dimensional items at the very end. That's just me. You, of course, do whatever works best for you. And then we're just going to put our little hot air balloon. You want to basically set the edges up against the tallest little pieces. And there you have it. That's our super simple, cute little happy birthday card with my favorite hot air balloon on it. I love it. But that's the emboss resist technique, which I absolutely love. And I think this cloud stamp, making a cloud background, is the perfect use for it. So I love this little card. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and I will see you again next time. Bye!